We're meeting today with Donna Noce, who is the brand president for White House Black Market. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Steve. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us about your target market and what the brand has done to differentiate itself from your competitors.
Well, our target market is women, median age group of about 45. So we really focus our efforts around a woman that's at a stage in her life where she's very busy, primarily working women. She's probably got 1 or 2 kids left home, but may, in fact, most of her children may be out of the house and on their way to college already. We saw a niche for ourselves back about 5 years ago when I joined the company that really identified an opportunity. Where do women in their mid-40s go to look current, but not inappropriate for their age? So we identified this little sweet spot in the market that we were going to go after. And being different is very much a part of who we are. There's a famous quote that I like to remind my team about all the time, and it's by Coco Chanel, one of the most famous designers. And she said, to truly be irreplaceable, one must be different. So if we want to be irreplaceable as a brand, we try to maintain uniqueness, and primarily we do it through 2 ways. One, which is the most important, it's the relationship that we build with our customers. So we have an incredibly high standard of customer service. And even when the economy was tough back in 2008, the one thing that we didn't sacrifice was our associates and the payroll of those associates that were going to interact with our customers, because we felt as though if we built relationships at that time, regardless of whether our customer had money to spend, she would come back when she was ready to spend, and she did come back. And then the second way we differentiate ourselves is in our product. So we have a international design team in Fort Myers, Florida, and we design all our product very uniquely to our brand and to our boutiques. And we try to not only provide our customer with very current fashion, but we also try to provide her with incredible value through the quality and the fit and the fabrics that we use.
Tell us a little bit about how widespread your network is. How many stores do you have, and where most of them are located?
Yeah. We're actually located all across the continental U.S., Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. Today we're operating about 405 what we call our frontline or our full-price boutiques. We actually refer to them as boutiques. And we have about 40 outlets. Outlet stores that are located in outlet centers across the country. But we are in the midst of a very, very big growth spurt, and we're going to open about another 60 stores this year.
How has the customer changed since you began working in retail? And what are some of the key things that have stayed the same?
I think I'll start with what has stayed the same. I think what stayed the same is I think women want to feel special. Regardless of whether they're shopping for clothes or they're going for a spa treatment. And I think one of the things that has stayed very much the same in the 35 years I've been doing this is the relationship and the importance of the relationship with the customer. As I mentioned earlier, when someone crosses your, as we refer to lease line, or comes in the door of one of our stores, you don't know what's going on in that person's life that particular day. And I think what's important is realizing that regardless of whether that woman's going to spend money today or not is not the important part of that relationship. The important part of that relationship is whether or not she's going to remember that interaction that you had with her in a very positive way and come back and spread the word. And I don't think that has ever changed in retail. So building relationships and the importance of those relationships, exactly the same. I think what has happened is certainly technology has opened up, a 24/7 world for most consumers, and also the ability from the luxury of their own home anytime, any place, to be able to evaluate what you do in comparison to everyone else. And that has changed the dynamics of how we do business. Everything is so immediate today that our ability to respond with even a greater sense of urgency has become more and more a priority, I think, for most retailers. And because she can shop at her leisure and she can shop infinitely, how do you stand out amongst all the noise that's created not only now when she walks through the mall, but when, she's sitting at her kitchen table having a cup of coffee. So you have to be able to cut through that, and that's where maintaining the uniqueness, and we do it again through our product and through our service, but is very, very important. And carrying that across multiple channels so that the experience is always the same.
So Chico's as a company and Black House White Market as a brand are, as you mentioned, primarily U.S. focused. But there's all the talk of the global economy, the emerging markets, India, China, Brazil. How do they fit into your business plan going forward?
Well, we are exploring opportunities internationally. We've not decided yet on what that's going to look like, but we are in the process right now of evaluating all the opportunities for the brands that sit within the entire Chico's portfolio, White House Black Market being one of 4. And
of course, you mentioned that your design team is international, so that's
yes,
global. And
yes.
I'm assuming that you do some sourcing globally and so
yes,
forth.
Most of, I would say probably 98% of our production is out of the country, and most of it is in Asian-based countries, and has been for a number of years.
Then there's a question of social media and providing multi-channel brand experiences, which has become increasingly important, as you were beginning to talk about. What do you consider some of the key tools to be successful in that realm today?
Wow, multi-channel, omni-channel is like it's become the buzzword of the year. It seems lately. We've been very successful with our social media efforts. Actually, just this week, we hit 500,000 fans on our Facebook page, which we celebrated gloriously because I think when we launched our Facebook page about 2.5 years ago. So in 2.5 years, we've gone from 0 to 500,000 fans, which is great. What social media allows you to do is it allows you to engage with your customer on a very consistent basis, and it also allows you to provide some relevancy into her life. I'm a huge believer in adding value to our customers or not really doing it. So I don't view social media as just, the ability to throw noise out to her, but I want to ensure that if I'm going to impose on her personal time and I'm going to engage her, that I'm adding value back to her. I don't think social media needs to be hard selling. I think that women want to feel as though they're part of a community, part of, the same relevant interests to be able to engage her, and that's how we use our social media. One of the things that we do that is highly unusual in the retail environment is we allow our customers to post on our Facebook page, which most retailers will only allow you to post if they post something so you can reply. And our customers are very, very engaged with us because we allow them to share. Now, I also use, as the president of the brand, I use social media every day of my life because every night, I have a reputation for this, every night before I close my eyes, I get online and I read through our Facebook page. And the reason I do that is it allows me to stay very much in touch with my customer. And I think the crux of that omni-channel, multi-channel experience has to be, if your customer is your top priority, she needs to be your top priority in every touch point you have with her. And that needs to feel very seamless. So I will jump on Facebook and respond to a customer as fast as I'll walk up to a customer in a boutique and introduce myself and engage in a conversation. So I think you have an obligation once you go out there to ensure that you engage your customer the same way, regardless of whether you're speaking to her in person or you're speaking to her through a different medium.
So you're collecting a lot from the market in the various ways that you do this, and you're allowing the market to interact with itself. And you talked about sort of a light touch on your outreach. Could you give me a couple of examples of how you do that might be different than the way other brands handle it?
Well, first of all, I listen to my customer. I think it's really important that in any industry that you're in, right, you're only as relevant as you allow yourself to stay to a consumer. But I'll give you a very fun example of a positive outcome. This is going back probably about 2 years ago now. I was online. Now I log into our Facebook page, and I see all of these posts coming up, like 30 of them, all from women in Billings, Montana. Billings, Montana. And I start reading through them, and the gist of it was, oh my God, we don't have a White House Black Market in Billings, Montana. Why don't you come to Billings, Montana? So next morning I went to the office, I get on the phone with our head of real estate, and I said, why don't we have a store in Billings, Montana? And I said, find me a space. And sure enough, he found me a space, and this past September, we had the grand opening of the store, which they were so excited to have us. I mean, it was on television. I did radio appearances. We did a ribbon cutting, key to the city, the whole 9 yards. And the women were so excited that somebody actually listened to them. And the power of social media, right? The power of social media of being so relevant. Now, that's an extreme example of it. Not so extreme example is somebody has a bad experience in one of our stores. You know how far a bad experience goes versus a good experience?
They tell us 7 people on average, or is it 13?
Yeah.
It's some huge number.
So not only do we respond on our Facebook page openly, because I believe in being very open, but I personally, or my head of store operations personally, will call the customer.
So, and when you are not reacting to something that you see on that page, as far as actively going out, what kinds of communications do you do in that case?
Well, we share our excitement about product launches. We ask them questions about preferences. We polled all of our Facebook fans about a year ago on if you could pick what's your favorite, what color haven't we done for you that you'd like to see us do? And the number one response was purple, and that's what we delivered to them in September, and they remembered it.
Did it work?
It did. It worked. It was fabulous.
They liked
if
it.
you listen. And we also use the medium for special events. So we'll have unique offerings that we'll put out just for our Facebook fans, and that has been very successful as well. And while it's somewhat revenue generating, it creates the buzz and the excitement, and it makes them feel special, which is what all anybody wants, right, is to feel special.
Your company has a very specific brand identity. It's about this black and white clothing. I realize you have some colors like purple. But some would see that as a limitation for the brand. I'm thinking you don't think of it that way. So how do you make it work to your advantage?
It's so simple, right? It's the simplicity of what we do, and it is, we're not just about doing, black and white clothing, but what we're about doing is helping women learn how to take a foundation of a wardrobe and build around that season after season. So when we introduced color into the brand, which only happened about 4.5 years ago, it had a remarkable impact on the rate of growth, which you can imagine, because it does. It's difficult to do nothing but black and white, which is what the business did for a number of years. But the importance of maintaining that foundation is really based in the simplicity of ask any woman which is the most hanging in her closet. It's going to be black and white. And I think what we do is we leverage that, we leverage that authority to teach her not just how to shop and buy a lot of clothes, but how to build a real working wardrobe for herself.
What do you see as some of the key fashion trends now? Popular color, styles, what's happening? What's going to be happening this year?
God, it's all about pants. For me, it's all about pants this year. Color's been explosive for the last 2 years. Actually, I think to the point where women are ready to settle back down. When I was in Europe, actually back in September, notably, and if anyone that catches the runway shows, which anybody can watch now online, all of the big designers came down the runway actually with nothing but black and white. So I think we're going to start to see a migration away from the explosion of color and probably more of a model that looks like what we do, which is heavy black and white with an accent of color. So I think we'll start to see movement away from color a little bit. Definitely seeing a resurgence in the simplicity of dressing in a dress. So I think dresses are going to become a big part of women's staple wardrobes again. And again, as I mentioned, to me, the skinny ankle pant, like woohoo, bring back Audrey Hepburn with a little pair of flats. And I think you're going to see a big change in how women are going to start to dress again.
Okay. So older women are trying to dress younger these days. What does that mean for your brand?
I did older women trying to think, what is it? 40's the new 30, 50's the new 40. Age is such a state of mind. And I think what's important is that women dress in a way that's, number one, comfortable for them, and number two, appropriate from the perspective of I don't want to look like my 27-year-old daughter, but my 27-year-old daughter and I have a lot of the same clothes hanging in our closet. It's just how we put it together. So what we try to do is we try to provide current style, current fashion in a very appropriate manner, and through our great customer service, try to teach women how to put it together so it feels right and is comfortable for them for their age group. But again, the advice I always give women about fashion is you have to look in the mirror and feel comfortable. You have to feel beautiful, and you have to, with great confidence, be able to walk into a room knowing that you feel and look appropriate for the occasion. So I don't get so hung up on the fashion piece as much as I get hung up on the, do what's right for you. And what we try to do is view everything through the eyes of, as I said, a woman who's in her 40s. You can be in your 20s and shop with us, or in your 60s and shop with us, but keeping that focus has been a big part of our success, and hopefully will continue to be.
How'd you choose retail as a career?
Oh, it was crazy. I actually when I started college, I was a pre-veterinary medicine major. So the big joke in my family is my mom still tells me, I can't believe you do this for a living, because I couldn't even get you to put a dress on. I was a tomboy, and it was not ever on my radar screen. So I didn't grow up saying I wanted to be a fashion designer. I actually cut off all the hair on my Barbie dolls, and it wasn't in the cards. But when I was in college and I had to take a part-time job, I started working for this gentleman who owned two very small local stores, and he said to me, hey, how would you like to buy for the one store? And I said, I don't know, it's extra cash, sounds good to me. And I started working with him, and he took me into Manhattan, taught me how to do it. And I'll never forget the first time the merchandise that I picked out for that store came in and it sold. I thought, wow, this is incredible. What a rush. And I fell in love with it. I just fell in love with the whole idea of being in a business that I could predict what a consumer would want and then have the exposure of watching how it made them feel. Very, very interesting dynamic. So different perspective probably than most people you would talk to in the fashion industry. And then I left there and I took a job with a bigger company, and my career just took off, and I realized, because I loved what I did, I got up every morning with this, and I still do, with this incredible passion and this can't wait to get to work attitude that I had fallen into what I was intended to do. And what I love about the industry is it allows me to be incredibly creative, but it also has a very strong foundation in business. And that part of balancing this sort of very creative side with this strong business acumen and applying those two skills and talents together to run a business, a fashion business, is incredibly rewarding. Challenging, but incredibly rewarding.
And what about your experiences from your time in school in the early years of your career? Has that proved helpful to you in your job, and how?
You know what? If I could go back to school every year, even at this age and at this stage of my life, I would. Because, education is one of the most incredible gifts that we get. And, I can remember sitting back in school thinking to myself, what am I ever going to do with all of this information? And as I look back now, that foundation, whether it was algebraic in nature, scientific in nature, grammatic in nature, all built this foundation of the successful professional I've grown into today. And I have, throughout the years, periodically gone back. This week at Wharton has been an amazing experience. And, people have said to me when I was coming, you're going for a week on a finance course? You're the president of the company. You have people that can do this for you. And I said, you know what? You can never learn enough. You can never, and sitting there this week, by the end of the week, and that practical application of all of this knowledge I gained will make me so much stronger and prepare me for things in the future that otherwise I wouldn't have been prepared for. So even though when I look back through the years, at certain points in time, I couldn't understand how I was going to apply that knowledge to that moment in time, what I've come to realize as I've matured, it's not about that moment in time. It's about what it prepares you for in the future. And that's how I look back on my continued education, because every day when I go to work, I learn something new. But one of the smart things I've done, I think, through my entire career is at junctures have allowed myself to go back and put myself in a learning institution, not always a traditional school or classroom environment, to improve myself both personally and professionally. So I've been able to mature on so many different levels. And I think that's what education does for you. It gives you maturity at different stages in your life. Some of it you use immediately, and some of it are things you carry with you for a number of years before you realize you tap back into it.